your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Peace, 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 and welcome to Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast Show. And this is our Cultural Studies Night. I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is Coffee Talk Podcast. Welcome to the show tonight. Greetings, 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 and good evening. How is everyone tonight? I'm okay, if you don't mind me saying so. I am okay. I'm having a little bit of problems over here, though, as far as which camera that I want on tonight. Right now, we're going off of the computer monitor's camera. So if it looks different as far as where you're at, let me know. Go ahead and leave that in the comments. Excuse me. But tonight, welcome to the show. This is our Coffee Talk Podcast. This is our Cultural Studies Night. Tonight is when it gets to slow down. That's right. We slow down around this time, meaning that you had all day to do your errands. You had all day to make your husband or your wife or your children some great food on this Sunday evening. And you also had time to get the games out the way, watching your football games or whatnot. And it's time to slow down. That's right. It's time to go ahead and pour you some wine, roll you up a little something, put the kids away, tucked in their bedrooms, getting ready for night. And it's time for you to just be able to unwind, dig in, and catch Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast Show. Tonight's show, we are going to discuss the Emancipation Proclamation. That's right, the Emancipation Proclamation. If you never heard of that, some of you have, and you don't know what it really entails. So here tonight on Coffee Talk Podcast, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and break it down to its very last compound. See how it sound? A little unrational. A lot of MCs like to use the word dramatico. Hey, I had to get that in, man. It was only right. Peace to KRS-One in the BDP posse. All right, so now back to where we at. We're going to definitely break down the Emancipation Proclamation. But first, before we get into that tonight, we're going to go ahead and do what we do here at Coffee Talk Podcast. We're going to go ahead and give you the wise words of the night as well as the flavor. So tonight's flavor is, drum roll, please. I didn't ask for that type of drum roll. Yes. All right. But listen, let's go ahead and jump right into the show. So tonight's flavor, can I just take a moment to just grab my towel? Is that okay with y'all? Let me grab a towel, man. I feel like Elvis Presley sweating. All right, so check it, y'all. Tonight's flavor is red wine. Why red wine? Because red wine boosts your memory. It promotes eye health care, and it also improves your heart health as well as dental health. So tonight, our flavor is red wine. But whatever you sipping on, go ahead and leave that in the comments tonight. Let us know what you're sipping on, whether that be a water, wine, smoothie, a tea, a latte, a beer, a shot, whatever you sipping on. Go ahead and leave that in the comments. Let us know you're with us tonight here at Coffee Talk Podcast, Cultural Studies Night. I would say this, though. If you don't have to, don't be drinking on no alcohol tonight. Go ahead and just unwind, because you probably got to work tomorrow or do something that causes you to be productive. So definitely leave that alcohol alone. But whatever you're sipping on, enjoy our show tonight. All right. So yeah, the flavor of the night is red wine. All right. Now, jumping into our wise words before we get into the show. That's right, our wise words, as we always do. Tonight's wise words is from one of our elders. That's right. She was born July 16th, 1862 in Holly Springs, Mississippi. She went to the Essence March 25th, 1931 in Chicago, Illinois. This person founded the Colored Women's League of the NAACP. She was an independent politician, as well as had some affiliations with the Republican Party. Tonight, wise words is from no other than one of our ancestors, Mrs. Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells. All right. Ida B. Wells once said, those who commit the murders write the reports. I'm going to say this one more time. Ida B. Wells was quoted saying, those who commit the murders write the reports. What is y'all thoughts on that? Very interesting quote, I will say, from Ida B. Wells, as she states that those who commit the murders write the reports. One of the things that I started to think about when I read that quote or prepared for it for our show tonight is that those who commit the murders write the reports. And what that did is it took me back to what we're seeing right now currently, how every year and a half, there has been a black man in Hollywood or in politics or in entertainment that has been crucified in one way or another based off of accusations, allegations, differences. You know what I mean? So that's what stuck out to me, is that we have to be careful when we are receiving news coverage, whether that's through social media, whether that's through TV programming, about how others' media, I like to call them the old media, can influence and can covert you into thinking that the innocent is guilty and the guilty is not innocent. You know, Malcolm X said that one of the biggest entities of injustice is the media, in so many words, because they have the ability to make the innocent look guilty and the guilty look innocent. Go ahead and leave your thoughts tonight. Let us know what your thoughts are, again, on Ida B. Wells' quote, which we call the flavor tonight, or I'm sorry, the wise words, which we call the wise words. But tonight's Ida B. Wells' wise words is those who commit the murders write the reports. Give us your thoughts. This is Coffee Talk Podcast. Also tonight, before we go into this Emancipation Proclamation, I just want to go ahead and send my love, my condolences, my respect to one of my female friends that passed away. I'm not going to put her name out here on the podcast or nothing like that, because I do want to pay respects to her family, and those that know her know about her untimely demise, as well as those that don't. I'd rather the family get that information out there. But she was a good friend, man. We would always, cap on one another, bag on one another, whatever term you use when y'all was having fun, play, talking about one another. She was a good person, man. So my hats go off to you. No doubt. And to your family. You know what I'm saying? Big shout out to Rock. I see you, baby. I'll be by soon, man, to pay my respects, no doubt. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in for tonight's show. Again, it's a very quick show, but if you don't have the attention span, I get it, I understand, you got to check out. But for those that wait every Sunday and Monday night to tap in to the Coffee Talk Podcast show on cultural nights, this is for you tonight. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just happy to be back with y'all. And let's go ahead and dive in to the Emancipation Proclamation. I want you to listen to some things. I'm going to pause in between some to point out what is being said to give you a better breakdown. If you're not new to this and you know about our show, we are the Cultural Variety Podcast show, and you know how we get down. It's Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast show. Let's begin. The Emancipation Proclamation. Although President Abraham Lincoln was personally opposed to slavery, he had expressed a desire earlier in his political career to put it in the course of the ultimate extinction. He felt bound by constitutional law and a desire to save the Union, to uphold it in those states, several which were supporting the Union's cause that had elected it or elected him. As a possible solution to the continuing vexing problem of racial conflict, he had begun a proponent of colonization, saying to a group of Black leaders in August of 1862, "I think your race suffer very greatly, many of them by living among us, while others suffer from your presence. Listen." He suggested Central America as a possibility site for relocation. As the Civil War progressed, however, under both political pressure and military expediency, he began to consider the possibility of abolishing the peculiar institution. So let's stop there for a minute. I want to give you a breakdown of what's going in the mind of President Abraham Lincoln during this time period. So basically, Abraham Lincoln was undecided about what he wanted to do with slaves, but he wanted to put the story to rest. Okay, that's what it was about. But he felt bounded by a constitutional law and a desire to save the Union. The Union was just several states. If you know those states, go ahead and leave that in the comment. Otherwise, we'll get back to that. But he only wanted to free them in certain states. Why? One is because the Union had elected him. Those states had got him in the office. And also, he felt that instead of relocating Black people or slaves to Central America, because that was one thought of his. He wanted to rid us out of the Americas and send us to Central America. But the war was progressing. So he started to think and had people talk to him about, let's keep some of these slaves and put them on the front lines. Does that sound familiar? Let's continue with our story. The effort to dismantle slavery proceeded by degrees. In August of 1861, Congress declared that slaves held by rebel forces, like other species of property, were contrabands of war. The next year, it forbid army officers to return fugitives to their slave masters. And in mid-July, as the war was going badly, Congress passed an act that liberated contrabands and allowed their service in the military. At that time, they allowed the service of slaves into the military, or fugitive slaves into the military, because they were getting their ass kicked. Yes, excuse my French. as I know some of our college students are watching tonight as well. But the Union was getting their ass kicked. Despite these changes, with the president's failure to position the federal government solely behind emancipation, hard war, abolitionists were growing impatient, while others observed more pragmatically that the deprivation of the rebel forces of their slaves would seriously weaken them economically, and at the same time find a new source of manpower for the North. Again, the North was kicking Abraham Lincoln and them's ass. They was kicking the Union's ass. Okay? And so he had to start to figure out what he could do to help, not us, but himself and his people over there. Lincoln began to formulate an emancipation policy in the summer of 1862, but was advised to delay its announcement until morale improved with a Union victory. After the qualifying Union success at the Battle of Antietam on September 22nd, Lincoln issued a preliminary proclamation stating that it was his intention that on January 1st, 1863, all slaves in rebellious states would be freed. On January 1st, the president issued his final proclamation, citing his position as commander-in-chief and describing it as a practical measure and an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity. Again, military necessity means he wanted to free them because he needed the help. Because the proclamation only applied to slaves in the rebel-held areas, hence the lengthy list of localities in the document, the ability of the Union to enforce the law in those states was doubless. While 1 million people outside those areas in Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, for example, remained enslaved. I'll say that again. While 1 million people outside of those areas in Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee, for example, remained enslaved. The very awkwardness of phrasing in the document that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and part of states are and hence shall be free. Designated states and parts of states are enhanced shall be free. So right there, it never was Mr. Lincoln's intentions to free us from the colonization of people that colonized us. It never was Abraham Lincoln's intentions. But at the same time, just like in this era, when you have reporters, news media, news coverage, always in your face. What you gonna do, Mr. President? What you gonna do, Mr. President? What you gonna do, Mr. President? He wanted to get past that because he was tired of it. All while at the same time getting their ass kicked in the war. And what might have been an edict of extreme clarity and force belies the nature of the compromise that Lincoln made. Nevertheless, a chink had been made in the armor of slavery. While many slaves had emancipated themselves at this point, as they had for centuries, the effect of the president's dictum was significant. As the historian John Hope Franklin observes, once the power of the government was enlisted on the side of freedom in one place, it could not successfully be restrained from supporting freedom in other places. It was too fine a distinction to make. Not even the slaveholders in the accepted areas could make it. They knew, therefore, that Emancipation Proclamation was the beginning of the end of slavery for them. Because it would have been hard to hold off saying, okay, only these slaves in this certain area, but not these slaves. However, as history has told it his story, they made it seem as if Abraham Lincoln was willing to free everyone. As the year of the Jubilee approached, numerous Freedom Watch Night observances was held. A description of these observances and the reaction to the word of emancipation can be found in the accounts of Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, among others. The symbolic importance of the event to future generations is reflected in James Weldon Johnson's 50 years, James Baldwin's open letter to his nephew 100 years later in the fire next time, and Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham City Jail. They all discussed this. The emancipation of slavery throughout the United States was made by law by the 13th Amendment that was ratified December 18th, 1865. So let's go ahead and dive in there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. This is Coffee Talk Podcast, Cultural Studies Night. Let's continue. The Emancipation Proclamation, and it said this. It says, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of those states are and henceforth shall be free. Those are the words right there, y'all. Lincoln never freed everybody. Whereas on the 22nd day in September, in the year of our Lord, 1862, a proclamation was issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following with no wit. That on the first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall there be in rebellion against the United States, shall be thenceforth and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority therefore will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any effort they make for their actual freedom. So basically what they were saying is, now that those people just in those particular states, those designated states, the military and the Navy had to bow down, not bow down like if they was punking out or bow down as in it, but they were bowing down to the authority of the chief executive staff. So those people in those designated states were considered free. Military wouldn't go after them. That the executive will on the first day of January aforesaid by proclamation designated the states and parts of the states, if any, in which the people therein respectfully shall then be in rebellion against the United States, and the fact that any state or the people thereof shall on that day be in good faith represented by the Congress of the United States and by its members chosen thereto at elections, wherein a majority of the qualified voters of such state shall have participated, shall in the absence of strong countervailing testimony be deemed conclusive evidence that such state and the people thereof are not then in rebellion against the United States. So long as they felt like you weren't in rebellion, you know, they didn't have no reason to go after you or re-enslave you or us. You know what I mean? But we're giving the breakdown of this. So if we have any questions or you want me to examine or break some down, go ahead and leave that in the comments. This is Coffee Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Ms. Schumer, and let's continue with this breakdown of the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, by virtue of power vested in me and Commander in Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, in time of actual armed rebellion against the authority and government of the United States, and as a fit and necessary war measure, a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing said rebellion, due on this first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, and in accordance with my purpose, so to do, publicly proclaim for the full period of 100 days from the date of this first above mentioned order, and designate as the states and parts of the states wherein the people therefore respectively are this day in rebellion against the United States for the following wit: Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, except the Persians of St. Bernard, Palcumines, Jefferson, St. John, St. Charles, St. James, Assumption, Terrebonne, Fort Launch, St. Mary, St. Martin, New Orleans, including the city of New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, except the 48 counties designated as West Virginia, and also the counties of Berkeley, Accomack, Northampton, Elizabeth City, York, Princess Anne, and Norfolk, including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth, on which accepted parts are, for the present, left precisely as if this proclamation was not issued. Did y'all hear that? So Virginia, excuse me, I just took a shower before the show, and so I got all that mixture of heat and sweat dripping down the side of my face here. So I do apologize. But did you hear me, my people, when it says all of those states, that part of West Virginia, those counties was not giving up and allowing slaves to be free. Again, this was the counties designated as West Virginia, and also the counties of Berkeley, Accomack, Northampton, Elizabeth City, York, Prince of Anne, and Norfolk, including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth, and which accepted parts are, for the present, left precisely as if the proclamation were not issued. And by the virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforth shall be free. So anybody outside of those areas, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and Navy authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. And I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from violence, to abstain from all violence, unless and necessarily of self-defense. And I recommend to them that in all cases, when allowed, their labor faithfully for reasonable wages. So that meant that they can make wages when allowed to be paid for their work and their service. But what could put you back in slavery, and it still does to this day, is if you commit a crime. Again, it says to abstain from all violence, unless in self-defense. And I further declare to make known that such persons of suitable conditions will be received into the armed forces of the United States to garrison forts, positions, stations, and other places, and to main vessels of all sorts in and said service. Yeah, because they wanted to strengthen their military. And upon this, sincerely believed to be an act of justice, warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. This was January 1st, 1863. So that was the Emancipation Proclamation as it was written by the House, as well as Abraham Lincoln, you know. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you feel that we are still slaves? How do you come from up under that? If we glorify the ignorance, if we glorify violence, wouldn't that be us entrapping ourselves? Because we send our people on crash missions. So you're actually leading your people back into slavery. What is slavery? Working for less than in prison cells. Some people are not even making 50 cents an hour. Depending on what region, what state you in, some of y'all are still in 2024 down on cotton fields. What's your thoughts on the Emancipation Proclamation? What did you learn from tonight based on the reading? Go ahead and leave that in the comments. Definitely a great read tonight. So with that being said, I'm going to let it go ahead and marinate on your minds until next week. And next week, we'll be back for more Coffee Talk Podcast Cultural Studies Night. Go ahead and let us know how we doing. Leave that in the comments as well. While you're there, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share our show, Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast Show. We appear 3 times a week, alternate Sunday, Monday nights. Wednesdays our sports night. Friday and Saturday is our grown folk social hour. Make sure that you tune in and continue to follow Coffee Talk Podcast. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hit you with the universal peace sign. Thank you for stopping by for the show and also for enjoying the reading. I'm your host, Mashum Saba, and this is Coffee Talk Podcast. Until next time, peace.